that's worth everything, upgrading the phone so she can watch from her bed. Okay. I guess it's good enough. All right. How's everybody tonight? This is kind of like I teach. Now, the people here, and then, although you add about 10 more there and about 20 more here, and that's about the way I teach nowadays. It's weird because when you move around the room, you got to make sure that you change to the right camera so they can see and hear you. Usually it's just easier to use my desktop camera and that's a document camera that I write on. The kids there can see it on the projector and the kids at home can see it on the screens. It's different, but if we ever do have to go to completely online, it'll work. It'll go just the same as it's going now, for me anyway. Excuse me, I woke up with stomach trouble. All right, Dad, would you lead us for a prayer, please?
Yes. Lord, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this privilege we have to come together midweek and study your word. We ask, dear Heavenly Father, that you help us to get the full meaning from your word, the blessings that always comes with it. We pray for those who aren't here. You know the reasons, dear Heavenly Father. Please care for them in a way that they can return to us. We can gain strength from them and from us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, now, in Matthew 5 and 21, that paragraph, if you, under the old law, if you commit murder, very simply put, he thinks three things here, but what he says is, if you commit murder under the old law, what was the punishment? Death. And they didn't worry about an Eighth Amendment to the Constitution because they didn't have one. So many people liken our laws to the laws of the Old Testament. It's just simply our laws are different. What does the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution say about the death penalty? About all penalties in our law? It says a couple things. It says no excessive bails or excessive sentences, but it also says you can't inflict cruel and unusual punishment. That has been a stickler with the Supreme Court for years, because if you look at it one way, you have to go back and look at what the framers of the Constitution meant by it. Because can you punish, if you punish a child, look at it like you're supposed to do that, you punish a child, is it cruel and is it unusual? Well, it would have to be punishment, wouldn't it? I mean, there are stages of cruel. I mean, if you give a child time out, that's kind of mean, isn't it? I mean, when you think about it, punishment is naturally kind of cruel and mean. That's just what it is. I mean, that means that's what punishment is. And unusual, it has to be something out of the ordinary for it to be punishment. You can't have an everyday thing. If a child plays video games all day, you can't make them play video games to punish them for doing something. It's so cruel and unusual. But think what the framers of our Constitution meant. At about the same time, and our founding fathers exhibited a great outrage at this. There was a guy, and I can't remember his name. I think he was a murderer, kidnapper, or something in England. Well, under English law, he was sentenced to be imprisoned for the rest of his life. But, which they considered to be equitable, okay, for what he did. But once a year, on the anniversary of his crime, he was to be taken out into the city square and horsewhipped, and the populace was allowed to throw vegetables and stuff at him. Well, the framers of our Constitution said, no, that's not a fitting punishment. English law was a lot different than it is now. It's a lot different than our law, and they sort of now pattern their law after ours. When you were hung in those days, you weren't hung to kill you. You were hung until you were almost dead and they cut you down. Then you were drawn and quartered by horses. And if you still were alive, you were completely eviscerated. They pulled out your bowels in front of the crowd. Our framers' Constitution said, no, if you're killing someone as punishment, then you kill them. You don't exact pain and vengeance out of it. That's what our laws say. So this old argument about, well, we shouldn't worry about the accused and how much he suffers because he didn't worry about it when he did that to his victim and stuff like that. That argument doesn't apply in our personal law because we can't do that. Our government cannot act as vengeance. It only acts to punish. If that makes sense. Under the old law of Moses, I don't think it went out of its way to act as vengeance either, but I don't think it bothered too much about it. The Old Testament way of execution was, and in some ways much more cruel than what we do, but in some ways much more fitting than what we do. How did they execute people under the law of Moses, usually? They stoned them. They put them in a circle and they threw rocks at them until they died. Now, it's kind of a bad way to go. It's a little quicker than other ways. But you can kind of see the advantage of that over what we do with our death penalty. And I want you to look at that for a minute. If we sentence somebody to death, who is killing that person? If we vote for legislators and we vote for the death penalty, then it's us, right? We are doing it. Well, the Old Testament made the people there own it. The way we kill people today and execute them today, and there's nothing absolutely against what the Bible has to say. I just think you gotta look at what the Bible does say about the death penalty. At least under the Old Testament, the entire community had to own it. You had to be willing to do it. The entire community. If you were going to send somebody to death, the entire community had to be, okay, that's what we've got to do, that's what we've got to do. I don't think for too many people it was pleasant either. I don't think that they really wanted to do it. But the people did it. In our case, it is a few employees of the government do it and nobody sees it and it's completely hidden away. But we are the ones that are doing it. To me, if you're willing to do it, then you ought to be willing to be a part of it. But that's the old law. But now, look at this. And I taught this to the kids with the 8th Amendment and with the 6th and the 7th, which have to do with trials. When I taught it, you've got to understand the limits of what we can do. Okay? The limits of what our government can do, and I understand this is an election year, and this is the worst time to be talking about this, because most politicians to get elected will promise you that they're going to do. Oh, I thought that was outside. What a cool ringtone. Is that for Halloween? I love that.
No, that's my regular one.
You're kidding, really?
I love it
I imagine so. It freaks out people in Walmart when you go.
all the time.
I thought it was something over this or something outside. Wow.
And there was a police car right up here.
Wouldn't that be cool if that was their sirens? All right, now, and politicians today trying to get to office, and we're going to fix everything. I don't think they can, and I don't think they're lying. I just don't think it's possible, because the only weapon that they have, or the only tool that they have, is a better way to say it, to fix things, is to get together and to pass a law. Laws are great, and they're meant to be. We need them, and we have to have them. But laws cannot go but so far. The only thing that law can do is impose a punishment for a certain action. If people are willing to accept that punishment, then and go ahead and do it, then law is basically powerless. A few years ago, this didn't happen to me, but it happened next door to me, and it could have happened to me. There was a child that was mad at another student in a classroom. Well, the rule is you can't leave your classroom without a pass. That you're skipping class. Or you're out of your designated areas, what we call it now, because it's easier to prove that than skipping class, But you go to ISS for a couple days or whatever, or they punish you for it. And this child got up to leave the room, and the teacher said, "Do not leave the room. If you do, I will have to write you up to the office. Write office fine." The child said, "I understand that, but I can't stay here anymore." And he opened the door and walked out. And he went to the office, and he was perfectly willing to accept his punishment. Okay? And did it do any good? Did the law do any good in that case? The rule? No. It was useless. 1960s here in America, the law was all these Jim Crow segregation laws in the South. Well, when people began breaking those laws and accepting the punishment for them, they nullified the law, and the law was gone. I mean, it doesn't work when people are willing to do that. Gandhi was the guy that figured this out. And, well, he figured it out, but in practice, there's other people that have come up with the idea. It's called civil disobedience. It's been done for years. If you're willing to, and if you want to get rid of a law, this is the way to do it. I mean, rather than go through all of this business about changing it and having the legislature do this, that, and the other, and going through committees and voting and stuff, break it and accept the penalty for it, and you'll kill the law. It works. It always has worked. That's the weakness of civil law. And it will, and we do it all the time. I mean, we do it. People will, remember when the speed limits were all 55? Nobody did it.
About 55.
Now, they weren't happy about it, but they went ahead and broke the law, and they paid the fines, right? What happened to speed limits? Eventually. Or 70 now. The thing is, law can only go so far. What Jesus is bringing out here, yes, if you commit a crime, you're going to pay the penalty of law. Is making a law going to correct bad behavior? What corrects bad behavior? That's what we need to be looking at. What corrects bad things in society?
I don't think there's any certain one thing.
You sure?
No, I don't think so.
All right, look at a bad act. In this case, it's murder. Look at a bad, well, folks, what causes someone to commit murder?
It's mad, angry.
That's one thing. Okay. One thing is, I find it to be maybe anger, greed. Instead of saying money, let's just say greed, the want of money.
Hate.
Hatred. That's about it. Okay? I mean, there might be one or two more, but let's look at those. Let's take our murderer. Okay? Before he commits murder, he feels greed, anger, or hatred. Let's go back in time and teach that little child that anger is a good thing if it's controlled. You're able to control it. That greed is not a good thing to hold to yourself. That hate only hurts you. Let's teach that child those things, those values, over and over and over again. And when he grows up, and this moment comes where he is tempted to have hatred or greed or anger that's going to lead him to commit this unspeakable act, what's going to happen?
Come to a senses, hopefully.
It's not going to happen, probably. And I'm not trying to make this a math equation. Okay, this guarantees this, guarantees this, guarantees this, guarantees this. Because, and here is what people forget about the Bible. There are 3 institutions in this world set up by God. We call them divine institutions. God set up institutions. One is, of course, the church. The other is the home. And the other is civil government. 3 holy ordained institutions by God. And they each have a job to do, and they have different jobs to do, and one can't do the other's job. Okay, you have this rule that's also a moral, that's also what we call in sociology a mores. That's a universally accepted truth. Murder is wrong. Do not take another human life. It takes all 3 of these institutions to deal with that. Okay? If someone goes ahead and commits this infraction against this universally accepted truth, if someone commits murder, what do we know about how well these 3 institutions are doing their job? Somebody, or one of them, 2 of them, or all 3 of them fell down on the job. In my own case, personally, I'm a part of all 3. I have a home that I'm supposed to be the head of. Not doing a good job right now, honestly. You know, well, I mean, we can lay blame or say this, that, or the other, but the point is, it doesn't really matter.
It's in the genes.
Well, unless I take the idea that it's my fault, I can do nothing about it. So that's what we're going to go with. I am an agent of this part of civil government. In fact, I teach public schools and I train children not just how to be students of history, but how to be students of life and become adults. And then I'm a preacher in the church. Now, if this individual slips through and becomes a thief, a murderer, an extortioner, or any of these things, one of these institutions, 2 of these institutions, or all 3 of them have fallen down on their jobs. What Jesus is saying is this. The law says if you commit murder, you're going to die. But he said, don't let it get to that point. All of this crime starts in what the Bible tends to call the heart. The thinking part, the reasoning part, the feeling part of man. If you realize that and it goes inside you, if you deal with the inside and you fix that, you're not going to get to this other point. That's what he's saying. He's saying, you fix the inside. He's going to say this many times in many different ways throughout his ministry. In Matthew 23, he calls the scribes and Pharisees whitewashed tombs. The tombs are big boxes that hold dead people. This happened quite a bit in Jesus' day, because if you touched a tomb, you were ceremonially unclean to enter into the temple for a while. It was awful if you came all the way from Rome or Macedonia or someplace all this way to celebrate the Passover, and then you got there and you accidentally touched one that had been overgrown or something. You couldn't go in the temple. So the temple would actually, to help you out all around Jerusalem, they would send work crews out with paint, and they would paint these tombs white so that you could see them and not touch them, stay away from them. Before the Passover came, so you could celebrate Passover. So Jesus is more than likely, it's about that time he's pointing at these. You're like whitewashed tombs. You're beautiful on the outside, but inside you're corrupt and full of dead men's bones. Oh, Joe and Kim left us for some reason. This is what he's saying. You deal with the inside of the person. Now, go to those three institutions again. Which ones deal with the feelings and thoughts and priorities of people? That big inside. The church and the home. Civil government does not do that. Civil government does not do that. They can't. It's impossible. Now, this same thought is going to go here, beginning with verse 27. You have heard it said, you shall not commit adultery. Folks, we all know what adultery is. Okay? But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Now, here is the difference. Here's the main key to this, and understanding this word will explain the whole thing and make it easy to understand. What is lust?
Very strong desire that causes you.
Let's go with that, because it's talking about a certain sexual kind of lust here, but the Bible is going to use lust for any of these things. Lust is a word that came about during the King James days. Greek has this, we don't have it in English, but Greek has this concept, and so does Hebrew. Greek and Hebrew do it a different way, but they still can do it in the language. You have a way with any kind of descriptive noun, a noun like desire, one that can, usually they can either be used as a noun or a verb. Okay. Desire. Okay, let's leave desire out of this for a moment, and let's use, well, my Hebrew professor, he used the word kill for everything, mainly because katal is the word to kill. In Hebrew, it's very easy to show all the different ways you can spell it to mean different things, because the consonant sounds are all very, very plain. It gets really weird when you use other ones, but they're irregular. There's a way to say kill if you kill something. Take a shot at it, kill it. But then there's a way of saying it if you absolutely blast it and blow it up and smear it all over. You know what I'm saying? You just really kill, okay? If you demolish, That means you, like they do on the home improvement shows, they take it apart very neatly and then stack it up and take it outside. But then you can demolish by using dynamite, you know. You do it a different way. You know what I'm saying? Well, this is what's used here. The word in Greek for desire is thumia. But now, what Greek will do is they'll add a prefix to, which is a lot easier to do in Hebrew, because Hebrew is hard. But in Greek, you add EPI, epsilon P iota, to the front of it, and you do this. So if you demolish, okay, you just take a hammer, take down the cabinets in the kitchen, and take them outside and throw them away, you know. If you demolish, that's when you use dynamite and nitroglycerin and fire and do everything and turn the cabinets into sawdust, you know. In this case, you have desire, which is not used here. That's thumia. What is used here is epithumia, which is intense desire for something. Now, this word can be used like it is here, sexually, or it can be used for greed. You know, there is a word for wanting money. Okay, and then we get church people who only speak English and never really look at this, and we get these preachers that say, if you're not satisfied with what you got, then you're guilty of greed and you're going straight to hell and all this kind of stuff. Okay, come on now, we're all going to hell then, because at the end of paying bills in a lot of months, don't you think, you know, I wish I had a couple $1,000 more, I could pay this off. You know what I'm saying? I mean, which one of us haven't taken a paycheck and said, you know, I wish this was more? Or we sell something and think, I wish I'd have gotten more for this. And then we try to cover it by saying, oh, what I could have done for the church. You didn't have anything to do with the church when you're thinking about it. And folks, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting a little bit extra money. Okay? Okay, that's not greed. It's the same word, desire, and then greed, we use money. Greed is epithumia, which means an intense desire to have money. You know, the King James Bible does a great job at trying to make differences in this. It'll say desire or want, and it'll say greed or lust or something like that. Because that's that intense desire. You've met people like that. That's all they're worried about is how to get more money, how to get more money, how to get more money, and things like that. That's greed. Okay? In this case, it's intense desire. Charles said this about somebody one time. A guy said to him, "You're looking at my wife. I don't like it." And Charles looked at him and said, "Do you want to be married to a woman nobody wants to look at?" Now, when you think about it, think about it that way. You know, I happen to be married to, and I've been told, one of the most beautiful women in the world. Because the kids will see us riding around together. Say, "That's your wife? You can get a woman that pretty?" "Yes." "What are you saying?" "Nothing." No, you know, I know what you're saying, but I don't want to say it out loud, or they'll get in trouble. But the thing is, what I'm saying is this: that makes me proud. You know, that makes me feel glad. You know, if they're appreciating the beauty of a woman, that's one thing. But if they are calling her and texting her and wanting her to leave me for them and stuff like that, then what would that be?
Lust.
Yeah, that's what it is. And that's the difference here. Now, if you're doing that, that's where adultery comes from, isn't it? Adultery doesn't start with the physical body, it starts with the heart. In fact, think about it for a moment. Doesn't all sinning start there? If you can control the heart, if you can control the heart, if you can control the thoughts, if you can control, not the thoughts, if you can control the desires, the priorities, the motivations behind what you're doing, aren't you already there? Haven't you already solved the problem? So, where's a good place to find out how to change our motivations, to change our priorities, to change our affections, to change our drive inside, our direction in our life? Where's a good place for that? Scripture, which we find in the church. The church is a great place for that. In fact, that's why the institution is set up. That's why the institution is set up. That's a good place for it. Now you tell me, is government going to do that? Well, in a limited way, very, very limited, yes, they can. Because I have noticed our government instituting some programs to fix this, because there's a lot of folks in government that aren't idiots. They're looking at this like, if you have and I think this is great. If you have a young inner city teen youth crime problem, what does government do? That works, actually, in a lot of places. They will organize a recreational center and have inner city league basketball, football, things like that. What is that doing? That is changing their priorities, right? It's changing their priorities. Government even, there's some smart people in government, turns out, because they're seeing if we can just change this, we can not have to deal with it with the punishments and the courts and the prisons and the jails and everything like that. That's what Jesus is saying too. Change the priorities. If you take this inner city kid who's tempted to join the gangs and get into drugs and do crime, and you take him and get him and get him thinking that being good at basketball or football is even better. Folks, right outside of town here, just down the road towards Hinesville, is the Youth Challenge Academy. Now, they don't do athletics. They do military. They take kids, and I've sponsored two that are out there. They take kids who are getting messed up in school, and they're getting into crime and stuff like that. And they use the barracks for the National Guard at Fort Stewart. They house these kids in them when the barracks aren't being used. They teach them every single day to pass the high school equivalency test, the GED, the graduate equivalent diploma. Teach them to pass those 4 tests. They take them out. They teach them physical activity. They teach them military. They cut their hair. They make them wear uniforms. They get them up at 5 o'clock in the morning. They go out and do calisthenics. They put them in. And their goal is to channel these kids towards the military after their graduation from there. It's a government-run program. Is it designed to punish youthful offenders? No. It's designed to redirect youthful offenders into something more positive. So our government figures it out too, in a small way. But really, our churches and our families are the ones that need to be doing that. And yet, how many times do our churches put emphasis on this kind of stuff? How many times do our families put emphasis on this kind of stuff? It's more important, in my opinion, for parents to instill in their children a love for the truth, a love for our order, a love for compassion towards others, a love for working with others, a love for respect for authority, things like that. It's more important than that you buy them a brand new cell phone or the latest video game. You know, that's way more important. I think the other things are good too. I think, you know, folks, there's a lot of teachers hate cell phones. I love them. They don't need them now because we give every kid a Chromebook when they come to school. But when I was talking, if I couldn't remember a fact, I mean, it happens all the time. We were talking about someone on the news about electoral votes. I said, who's got their Chromebook open? How many electoral votes does Florida have? I think it's 27. I don't know that. Is it 27? Okay, 27. Okay, that's why these two presidential candidates are just spending so much time in Florida. Because Florida is so iffy because it's filled with Democrats, Republicans, Independents. Everybody retires to Florida from all over the country. You know? So it's full. The other day I was talking about this very subject actually because one of my standards is criminal behavior. What are the causes of criminal behavior and what do we do about criminal behavior? How can we keep people out of prison? We've got a problem in this nation. You know, but I wanted to show the kids we have a problem. So I said, who's got their Chromebook open? What percent of the world population is in the U.S.? The answer is 4.4%. 4.4% of the population of the entire world lives in the United States. Okay, that's, you know, a fairly decent number. Not the biggest, but of all the people in prison in the world, how many of those are in the United States? Number shocked me. 22% of everybody in prison is in prison right here in the U.S. So is what we're doing working? The law. Now, guess which state? Guess which state? There's only one state that more than 1,500 people per 100,000 of the, you know, per 100,000 people population of the state, more than 1,500 of them are in prison. Guess which state it is? It's not Georgia. Nope.
No.
You'd be surprised. The most laid back state that there is about everything, Louisiana.
That's what I was gonna say.
Louisiana. Everybody said, you know, the Big Easy, everybody come down here and relax. They imprison the largest percentage of their population than any other state in the union. The other ones that are very, very high are all in the South. It's just a line from Georgia all the way to Arkansas and Texas, except for one, and that is New Mexico. No. Yeah, New Mexico. And New Mexico is kind of a false statistic because what they're counting is all those imprisoned, undocumented aliens that they have that they usually return, but at any one time they have a pile of them in prison. So that's kind of a odd statistic. Texas, actually Georgia beats Texas in that percentage. I was surprised about that too, because Texas is really big on prison and stuff. But when I need to find that out, used to, when I need to find out, I said, all right, there's no principal in here. Somebody take out your cell phone and look it up. And they would say, oh, it's 27 electoral votes. Okay, that's fine. Okay, it's 27 electoral votes. That, you know, it's fantastic to have because it's a lot easier than me pulling mine out trying to figure it out. So, you know, and what I'm saying is this. Civil government is trying to do it. The schools are trying to do it. Okay, they're trying their best. The home is trying to do it. Churches need to do a better job of it. And the home. And government. To where we never will, you know, will we ever reach the ideal, which is the goal? No. We will never reach a society that has no murder. We will never reach a society that has no adultery. But that should be our goal. We should be training people. We should be giving people the skills to control their own urges and emotions and priorities and directions in life. In all three of these institutions working together. Sadly, these three institutions do not seem to work together in too many places. They did. They used to. They don't anymore. They seem to almost be at odds with each other many times. I go back to, and I know this is the ideal, and it wasn't always this way, but the little house on the prairie in town. You know, that city of Minnesota, Walnut Grove, the government, which was close to non-existent, but the government, the family, and the church, they all worked very closely together. Did that happen in America at one time? The ideal, probably not, but it was closer than it is now. They all worked together. We still have the leftovers of that. Have you noticed? Our legislative sessions, at every level of government, including the county commissioners here, all the way up to the Senate of the United States and the House, they begin every single legislative session with what? With a prayer. Very long one. Okay? They begin with a prayer. Every single one. That's a holdover from when these institutions used to work together. I hope that these institutions will work together again, and we probably have to stop here. All right, what's your invitation song? Uh-oh.
142.
142. We lost Joe and Kim. I guess they went into a dead data song or something. All right, 142. We'll sing the first verse of that song. We stand in need of responding to words of invitation. We come, let's together we stand, and as we sing.
Must Jesus bear the cross alone, and all the world go free? No less a cross for everyone, and there's a cross for me.
Almighty God, Father of all, we thank you for this time that we have together. We pray, we thank you that we have this freedom in this country to gather together and worship you. We ask that all of us in this world would have that freedom. We ask those that have that freedom will use that freedom. We ask that you would be with each and every one of us, continue to care for us, guide, guard, and direct us, and dismiss us from this place, but never from that service. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right, Super Sunday to Sunday, and a work day the Saturday after that. And that will be the day before Halloween, I think. Yeah, I think week from Saturday's Halloween, isn't it? Much different Halloween this year, from what I understand.
The word day is over.
Work day is Halloween. Yeah, sorry. So we're going to be here on Halloween. Much different Halloween than we usually have. But the only thing I've noticed that is going on, as always, with absolutely very few differences, is Wagoween. You know, where people in Savannah dress up in their dogs in costumes and themselves, and they walk around town and getting dog treats from businesses and stuff. Which is, I think, kind of a cool thing to do. But that's about the same, I've noticed, as it has been every year. But everything else is all different. You know, it's all virtual and stuff like that. They're recommending no more trick-or-treating at houses. No haunted houses. Trunk or treat is okay, and other kind of drive-through sort of things, but and corn mazes, they like those, you know, which they're outside and everything too. So, the race for the cure, which is the vaccine, which will be, looks like the spring of this coming year, is what they're looking at now. Now they're saying who gets it first. You know, oh, I do. You know what? You know what it means? If I get a vaccine, if I get a shot, it means no more masks at school. Don't gotta wear them anymore. I can't wait. I can't breathe in things. But
You'll have to bear fruit.
Hmm?
You'll have to bear fruit.
probably they'll,
All conditioning.
yeah. The vaccine's the first step. And they say they can. Who is it telling me? Somebody here said if you get the vaccine, they're going to track you with it. First of all, I don't think that's true. But secondly, what do I care? They can track me all they want. And the president has said, and now the attorney general has said that Google is going to be sued for antitrust laws, which will, well, if they shut down Google, that's going to bring education to its knees because,
Somebody always fills in the gap. Always.
well, honestly, I
Because
use
Google has crossed the line.
in many places and times. And I will say this, I'm using Google Meet now because I have to, they make us. But they let us use Zoom like this in March. I love that you can do a lot more with Zoom. It's easier to use, easier for the kids to use. But it is a Chinese company, so can't have that. We have to do Google.
Well, it's been hacked. It's been hacked many times.
Yeah,
And to the really
it has.
detriment of watchers.
You can, if you're the Google Meet, if you're the Zoom host, you can kick anybody out at any time.
And
The only time it's going to be hacked the only time it's going to be uncontrollably hacked is when you have huge Zoom meetings, like 300, 400 people. But like with my 20-something kids, I can tell which one's talking. They're on the same page. They light up when they talk,
I'm always amazed though, the individuals that actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be smart.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they waste their life doing stuff like that.
Well, did you notice about a year ago, they started hacking the Ring cameras. They had inside their house, because the Ring doorbell cameras, people had them inside their house, people started hacking them. And then, like you said, you had to be pretty much a code genius to do what they were doing. I couldn't do it.
They had hacked baby monitors, for
Yeah.
goodness sakes.
They hacked that one little girl, and they filmed her, and it was around Christmas time last year, and they said they were Santa Claus, and they wanted her to take a hammer and tear up her TV. Well, that's sad and regrettable, but why in the world would you go to all that much trouble to get some 5-year-old to take a hammer to her TV? You're not really
If you can do that, then you can accomplish greater.
what you would think. Why would you go to all that trouble to have a kid break up her TV? And then one guy got on some African American guys and said some racist thing to him. He just got mad and he taped it. Why use all of that technology savvy just to do something stupid like that? But I can't figure people's motivations. I really
I can't even.
why would you go to all that trouble for that?
Usually go your step and yourself. Somebody like that didn't sound like that.
Well, it's something very small. On my Google Meet today, this girl was working online, doing the right thing, and her brother came in and started disrupting my class. So I kicked her out. Set her up. She emailed me, I'm sorry, my brother did that. So I'm trying to have class, I can't do it. Then she couldn't get back in because I kicked her out. So I had to make a new Google Meet for her to come in on the side, and she was there and finished out class. I said, you want to let your mama know? Because if you don't, I will. I said, I don't appreciate any of that. Your brother just basically told me what we're doing here is not important, and what he wanted, and this childish attention that he wanted to throw himself was more important. Oh, I got mad. I said, but I will call your mama and tell her what your brother did, or you tell her, one or two, but I need to know what happened. All right, we're done. We'll, unless y'all have something else, we'll see you Sunday. If not before, talk Kelly a few times today. Yeah, back and forth. This year, it looks like our cross-country team's going to be good. They're probably gonna go far.
Yeah.
Honestly, so he's a big part of it. Small team though.
It's a team because kind of him. He encouraged some people. And that was a good thing, so
He's into it, and
bye-bye.
it looks like we're gonna have a fairly decent team. And our
That's good to know.
our softball girls won a game yesterday, put them into the Sweet 16. You know, next stop is the Elite Eight.
Yeah, that little girl that pitches, one of them is right down the street from us.
What's her name?
Kenzie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Kenzie Mowen.
Well,
And,